Project-based assessments engage the students and motivate them to establish effective collaboration, develop problem-solving skills, as well as their self-esteem, exchange good practices, and discuss challenges with their peers. This session aims to provide concrete examples, ideas, and tools to inspire and support educators in their lesson planning. This session would be facilitated by Dr. Magdalene Valeska, and it would be my honor to introduce our speaker for the session. Dr. Valeska has done her bachelor's in applied physics, following by master's in e-learning, and has a doctoral degree in sustainable development, public administration, and public policy, and education with emphasis on pedagogical models. Dr. Valeska is a head consultant professor of the STEAM program. We welcome you, ma'am, and looking forward for a very inspiring session.
Thank you very much. I guess I can share my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate very much the opportunity to be with you. It is an honor for me to participate with you and to have the invitation of Dr. Sujata Yeruba and all of you. So I'm very honored to participate with our humble STEAM program, and I hope you like what we do and you find useful tools in our experience. Our STEAM program was developed after 15 years of educational research. We were trying to teach students basic sciences, and then we were worried about how people learn. How do they learn? How do they get the knowledge? How do they get interested in such topics? Then we found out that if you try to entice them to science when they are already at the university, well, they're already at the university, so they have found their paths. Or maybe they didn't found the path they wanted, but they had already chosen one. So we tried to motivate younger students. When we tried to motivate high school students, we found out that sometimes misconceptions and things that were not taught properly were a big learning barrier for students. So we designed a STEAM program, project-based, that was allowing us to do outreach activities for students, motivating them from K-12 levels all the way to the research and higher university. I thank very much Ms. Fernandez for the presentation she gave. I had a long life. I always say I had many lives in one life, but it's been an interesting ride. And the challenge we faced was when we asked ourselves, how do we have a kid and get a successful scientist? And this picture is from a successful scientist that is part of our STEAM program. You see, he's trying to explain a young girl from a rural area. You see how the environment, she even got him a coffee. That's how she started conversation. She went and gave him a coffee, and he said, "Can I ask you a question?" And we were amazed. So we all left them alone, and I was trying to get the right picture because it was an amazing moment. The girl from a rural area approached a renowned scientist from Fermilab that we took to the rural areas with a planetary, with one of those inflatable planetariums. We took them to the rural areas, and it was a big hit with kids. So then we faced another challenge. How do we assess that? How can we prove that she learned something that day? It's not the summative evaluation, like the doctor before me explained really nicely that tool. But how can we assess the progress of students and motivate them? So we call them ex ante and ex post, because we were trying to do another kind of evaluation. We wanted to assess what happened prior to the pandemic, and if really the pandemic has made us evolve, and how. We were asking us, how can we determine if our intervention was successful? One intervention is successful when you see kids happy, learning, but you need them to be able to share that knowledge with their peers and to build community learns. And the outcomes. How can we establish if they are really getting the knowledge or if they are getting misconceptions? How can we know if we are transmitting the right messages? And the most important thing for us, how do we get a curious, talented kid to be a successful scientist? We found out that all we do is linked to the last question. We need talented, curious kids to be successful scientists in order to make progress in our countries. And in particular, we promote women's participation. How do we get a curious girl to be a successful scientist, to find the right opportunities? How do we assess that the intangibles that we can't even put in words? So we started with our STEAM program, and you see that our speakers are the students. And then we started with ProjectBased. It was derived, as I was telling you, from my IBLP program, where I participated with the Hidden No More. And we started an alliance with Dr. Julian Felix at Universidad de Guanajuato, where we started what we call our successful approach. And I don't want to bore you because I want you to participate. So I'm going to motivate that you share with us. But what are the key elements that we found? These girls are my students in the university. They are studying teaching of physics and mathematics and teaching of biology and chemistry. But we started some robotics diploma for them, so they will get new tools to teach their students. And we started to flip the model, to tell them, how would you assess the knowledge and how would you do the evaluations? So our key elements were, we needed this to be replicable, that they could do it whatever they are. It has to be mobile. It has to be able to be done wherever they are and in rural areas as well as in the big cities. We kept all the interventions low cost. So economical hurdles won't be a fact that will endanger the process. We wanted, of course, to be gender inclusive. We want to promote women's participation, and due to the pandemic, we moved to virtual contents. But we need to keep, even in the virtual context, hands-on experiences and to have the girls to get positive role models. Probably all of us didn't need the positive role models as much as the next generation. I myself didn't understand that till a couple of years ago. When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of role models to follow, women's role models. I always saw the scientists like being male, and all the toys, of course, they were princess-like. But as I grew up, I got curious, and I was lucky to have parents that were able to understand that curiosity and not kill it. But on the next generations that they are bombarded with all the information around them, they do need more positive role models. They need to know that girls were able to be scientists, and they need to know this so they can train the next generation of scientists. So we started with the challenges that I know you all know better than me, because when you try to assess a project-based focused program, you get a lot of challenges. The first challenge I had, I have to admit, was the authorities. And I know it doesn't happen in your university, but in my university in particular, the authorities were not convinced. So the first thing you have to do when you change the focus on how you're going to do the assessment is to talk to the authorities. It seems like a simple and logical process, but trust me, it will take you longer and farther if you do this first. Why? Because the authorities need to understand what you're doing. It sounds silly, I know, but sometimes the authorities can be your biggest obstacle. They need to understand and get on board with you. The next challenge you will face probably will be the traditional pedagogical models. People are used to teaching on a blackboard and not going to the field. In the experimental sciences, physics, and particularly biology, it is unthinkable that you still try to teach on the blackboard. I teach the astronomy course, and one of my authorities, one of my bosses, told me that he was sure that astronomy was well taught on the blackboard and not going to the field. He was really convinced that the astronomy course was better at 5 p.m. than at 7 p.m. And I fought so that I could move it to 7 p.m. so that I will have the sky as my lab. And he was convinced that at 5 p.m., when there is still sunlight in my country, it was okay to teach it in the blackboard. So when you face the change from the pedagogical models, you need to establish this. You need to do the extra mile and tell everybody what you're doing. Another challenge you will get is, of course, your peers. You have to get them on board because the projects will be integral and this is an opportunity. For example, I will tell you about it. I try to intersect chemistry, biology, physics, and math. So I do a project based on a tree, the latex tree. So I try to get on board the physics about the sunlight and about how the sunlight gets the energy to the tree. Then I get the biologist to tell how the tree works. And then I get the chemist to tell how the reaction gets to liberate oxygen, how the photosynthesis work from the three integral approach. This works fantastic. But when you're not telling the other peers what you're doing, you sometimes face the challenge. You have to get them on board. But you have a lot of opportunities with this approach. This approach allows inclusive education to be on board right from the start. I used to have 2 students who were deaf, so they will have a lot of hurdles when you were in a blackboard and sometimes you were talking in another direction because they were trying to read your lips. So another thing is this opportunity to get integral models to teach a topic. The biggest is to get interdisciplinary learning. They will get farther in their careers if they are able to make those connections. And the opportunity is to make a meaningful learning that will get us better trained scientists. This is a lifelong training. So they won't be studying for the exam, but they will get the knowledge and be appropriating it. So I have a challenge for you. Basically, I want you to participate. I am inviting you to explain the trees as an effective solar machine. I know you are all biologists and you are excellent biologists and you are far better than me to explain this. So I want to invite you to think, how do you tell a student in a few words that the tree is an effective solar machine, that it works like the solar panels, that it transforms solar energy? In my country, they used to tell the kids that the trees eat sunlight and breathe out. It happens in your country, I didn't know. The trees, there are even children's books that say, the trees eat sunlight and they release oxygen. And the kids repeat that, even make sounds, and they're happy thinking that the tree eats sun. But when you're trying to do the next step to explain how the photons work, it gets tricky because the kids are used to see photons like a particle that you can eat. Sometimes They think that you can eat the light. So it must be a particle. So the example I told you, I was using a latex tree. So I don't know if this works because I'm too far from you, unfortunately. I hope someday I can be able to go and visit your lovely country. But for now, I invite you to go to Slido, and if you point your cell phones to the QR, it will get you straight to this, and we can all work together to do a cloud world. I want you to participate, to hear from you, and since the virtual environments is always tricky to do so, and I hope I'm not being too impulsive on the organizers, I want you to participate on the Slido. And the thing is, we all have different visions in a big world, but we all convene with the will to make a better world. So the trees, if we can make the kids respect trees, we have better chances to stop them from mistreating the trees in the long term. I've seen people chop down trees in their houses just because they don't want to clean the bushes. So it's amazing, and that has an impact on our cities, on their temperatures and on the air quality. So I would really like to see if we can get a couple of participants, or if not, it would be okay if you participate in the chat or the Q&A. I don't know which one is enabled.
Both of them are enabled, ma'am.
Oh,
I request the participants to choose any of the options to please participate. You can either post your answers in the chat box, Q&A, or at slido.com.
yeah, this is an active poll. It will remain open through the day. Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. So when you explain a tree as a living solar system, photosynthesis is one of the main topics you use. But also you can explain to them photons. You can explain the photoelectric effect with a tree. What are your other thoughts? I used the latex tree, and I know what I did. Nice, transpiration, carbon cycle. I used to have a small latex tree, which is a funny but sad story because I had it on a pot. So I will have to move it to my class and take my class outside and get a plastic bag, and then I will cover it. And I will make an incision on the tree. And I will tell my students, you have to explain to me why when I get the bag out, the tree stops leaking. And they were amazed to see firsthand something that in my country is really common because we have a lot of plantations of latex. But they were amazed to see how immediate the tree will stop leaking. So I was using it to also explain photoelectric effects. Starch, nice, yes. The carbon cycle, the glucogenesis, pigments, yes. You have a lot of, and you see, photosynthesis is the winner with you. And when you teach photosynthesis with a living solar system, they get better chances. There is a project that it's called Tempesco. You might have heard of it. They do with an Arduino a mechanical tree. So the Arduino does put a pump that it's moving the fluids, and it works with a solar panel. So you can basically mimic the works of a tree. Chlorophyll, you see, we all are on the same page. When we do this with the physicists, we start with photosynthesis and we always end up with photons. And we get to the particle and wave duality because, as I was telling you, they tell kids that the tree eats photons. So it has to be a particle. But when you go to the sun, well, sometimes it feels like it can hurt you, but you don't feel the photons. You can put your hand and you don't feel the photons, but your cells do get the reaction. So I appreciate you participating, and I will move because I have a few time and a lot to share. We try to do the project-based focus now that I have you on another page. And I wanted to do this to move. This is how we teach free fall, literally with an egg. If you see the device, I use raw chicken eggs and put my students in the 5th and 6th floors of the building. This is one of the universities that I work at. This is Universidad Galileo, so I have a nice setting to do this. So we drop chicken eggs from the 6th floor. They always get the impression that I'm, trying to do something bad to the egg, but most of the eggs survive. Most. It's not foolproof, but if you see, we have several designs and they take the test, they take the measurement of time, and this is their own prototypes. They have to build their prototypes. So they drop it, whatever, and sometimes the people from the janitorial services hate me because the minute I get out, they go with the mops. They say, she said it again. So we have to explain free fall to kids using simple prototypes, but they build it. So here they are building their prototypes, testing, redoing. This is called Webinci because it works like a helicopter. So they get an inside knowledge, a different knowledge of how things work. But then I was faced with a challenge. How do you assess this kind of stuff? How do you measure it? How do you grade it? Because in the end, all the universities need you to grade it. So this is from STEM Conference. STEM Conference is one of our biggest efforts. We do 1 day of workshops for kids. Well, prior to the pandemic, we were able to hold it for 2,000 kids in 1 day. And the kids participated, and you see, they all built their own prototypes. This is one of the simplest one, the one with the paper. And it was a big challenge. So how do you measure it? And we found out that it's possible to grade it, most likely when you do the traditional evaluations. You can grade it in the psychological, in the attitudinal, and in the contents, because you can assess the contents in the same way you do it. So you can use the same rubrics, but you will get for the project-based. So another of our challenges was, can't you build a helicopter from a piece of paper? And I am inviting you to try to do it. I'm pretty sure that you all have a piece of paper around you. In what way? In whatever way you have. So I will do it with you. Even if you don't have the scissors, I'm inviting you to take the piece of paper, even if you take it from one of your notebooks. But the challenge is to try to do it the simple way. Even if you don't have the scissors, you'll be able to try to do it. And I want to invite you to do it because one part that we always miss with project-based assessment is that the storytelling is important. When you put a project, you need to tell them a story. So with this piece of paper, I will invite you to take a couple of minutes. I still have a few. So to take a couple of minutes and draw one of the drawings here. Just do one because we don't have that much time. And with that, you will be able, you see, I'm just doing the pens. You will do the cuts. You can do it like this. You don't need the scissors if you don't have them on hand. But what I want to show you is how, from a simple piece of paper, you can do a big storytelling. So what we tell students, and it's true, is that this is one of the projects that is based on the website from NASA. And usually NASA takes challenges out for kids where they can participate and they can, promote their ideas to be used in the space station or to be used on the missions to Mars or the moon. So we call this flying on another planet. And kids love the idea when you start telling them, okay, we are thinking about flying on another planet. So tell me, what do you think when you think that the atmosphere will be different? So they have to do the research about how the atmosphere is in another planet, the gravity, how it will work. If the gas mixture is the same as in here, if the gases will corrode the materials. And then we tell them, you have to build your prototype. And of course, they always start with this, like, badly cut, badly bent, but it works. If you drop it, it works. So I always start with this because I tell them, this is the first thing. When you get an idea, try to materialize it. Same thing with the tree. If you think the tree works that way, prove it. And then make a prototype to prove. And the thing about project-based learning is that when you do it, you are able to modify and control the situation. The most important thing for us in the lab is always to be replicable results, to prove it, and to control them. We always sound that we need to control every single variable, and we are not able to do so. But when you let them do the experimentation by themselves, they get a lot of inside knowledge. So you get to modify this, and it doesn't matter if it looks really ugly like mine right now, because you are being able to modify it. And I'm sorry that the camera is not showing, but this one, right away, it starts to do this. Because the simple piece of paper allows you to control the airflow. And it works like the fans in your computer, and it works like the rotors in a big helicopter, and it works exactly like the Ingenuity works in Mars. So then we start to think, okay, if this is how it works, will it work better in a low atmosphere? Or is it possible, like in the movie Everest, to take a helicopter to big altitudes? What is the challenge a helicopter will face if it tries to fly in a density of air that is less than it is designed to? Will it be able to fly? Why is it not able to fly a helicopter at such altitudes? Why the helicopter won't be able to fly in the moon? Will it be able to fly in Jupiter? So that kind of questions allows us to make students participate, but also to get another kind of knowledge. Okay. I'm running. So then I tell them to compare. You have to compare your device to a single piece of paper and to see how they fall. Why do planes have the shape they have? Why do helicopters have the shape they have? And can we improve our device? So you see the simple one, well done, works perfect. This one works more or less, it still works, it still rotates. You saw the other one, the Wevinci, I called it. and we called it with Vinci because it was an inside joke with my students. They did this with acetate, the transparencies used in the class, which it is awful that it's still being used, but they still do this. Some of my peers still do the transparencies, but I use them to build this part. And this is one of the small paper cups from their lunch. So this student was not given the prototype enough time. He didn't do it during the week. So he was like, oh, I forgot my project. And I was, okay, do it now. And he was starting to rummage through everything to see how he can build it. And he ended up with this one. And it worked great, by the way. So we promote that they do their own projects and they can assess that. And then we can assess how they're learning. We even do the collaborative evaluation where they evaluate their peers. We have a Google form where they will fill it and put all the comments for their peers and grade it and grade themselves. We promote that they grade themselves. To be honest, and tell us, okay, did all the work, the research? Do and get a part of your grade. It's done on what you yourself think about it. So they start to do it better because they will grade it and their peers will grade it. So it is important in the end. You can see here that on the project-based approach we use, we have kids from the K-12 interacting with junior highs, and junior highs are the speakers. We train them to be their speakers because we believe that it works better if they hear from their peers, from people their own age. It works so much better. So during the STEAM conference, we provide all the materials thanks to the support of the U.S. Embassy in Guatemala, because the public administration doesn't allow us to give the materials. It's funny, but they don't allow us to give the materials to kids. They say that one of the teachers has to be responsible of the materials and bring them back to school. And we flip the approach. We allow kids to take the kids to their homes, to share with their peers, to share with their families, to share with auntie, uncle, brother, sister, whatever they have in their families. And in my country, we have big families. So we can make a broader base. So they can share with their learning community and they enjoy it. So much more that when they only do it at school. Because when they do it at school, like the approach from the Lego or the big robotics kits, that it has to remain in school. Whenever they have an idea, they are not allowed to change it, to flip it, to work it, to break it, to bend it. So we keep the intervention locals so they can break it and redo it. We use a lot of popsicles, the pieces from the popsicles, which are wood. We use a lot of those, and we use a lot of colored paper so they can do it, whatever, change it. And then we start to tell them to recycle. So they can recycle paper, they can recycle the popsicles. We do give them the small DC motors and the small electronics they will need. But we motivated that they do it, break it, and redo it. Nothing is breakable. They have to be able to redo it. in this way or whatever way they choose or they imagine. And this is a big part of what we think works best in this project-based assessment. We have a series of seminars with experts from around the world. You see top experts, even a Nobel Prize winner here, Bill Phillips. And you can see that we even have 2 Breakthrough Prize Awards winners. Here is Juan Maldacena. And we try to motivate them that if they see these positive role models and interact with them, because they are able to talk to them, to ask questions to the biggest names in the field, they can do it. If they can run their ideas with these experts, they can see that they can do it. This is another part of our workshops. We promote the workshops to be, you see, with simple materials. In these workshops, we are teaching temperature basics. This is the thermometer. But we teach the kids that the thermometer is not based on the dilution of or expansion of the liquids, but the expansion of the gas. So you can see here, maybe it's too fast, but you can see their faces and you see how young our kids and participants in the virtual workshops are getting. And they get amazed when they see that the bottle is actually empty. So we promote for them to build their own thermometers along with the expert, and they get always amazed how it works. So you see, our intervention is really low cost because it's less than $8 per participant. But the great part of the pandemic for us was we are a small country. We only have 16 million people. And to reach over 700 people from around the world was a big success for us. It was amazing how we exponentiate the outcomes of what we do. And I think I only have a couple of minutes, so I will tell you really quick about this. We have opportunities to teach and make meaningful learning. And this, you see, are my students. My students are teachers who are already working on the field. They're working the K-12 levels. So we do 2 big activities during the year. One is the scientific Halloween, where we try to motivate them to show the astronomical part of this celebration. I always tell them that if one celebration around the world happens on the same date, for many cultures, it's because we are a big world and we have to embrace that. So we have to explain it from the astronomical point of view. That allows us to give a broader perspective and to remove barriers and to promote inclusion, diversity, and to also promote a better society. If we all acknowledge our difference, but we also acknowledge our similarities, we can make a better impact on society. So we do the scientific Halloween, or we also do the Carnival, which is close to the Easter. So we motivate them to use the astronomical parts to do the outreach also. And kids get really interested when they start to explain about the equinox, the solstice, and all the parts with this. One of my students was portraying Medusa to portray the maximum of Algol star, and she was doing with the candy worms. And in the middle of the presentation, she started she went off character and she started to eat them. You know, it was funny to see her eat her own costume. So they have a good time, and we promote that they do a great time with their students. That is part of what we think. And yes, please, hope you have a lot of questions. Only your imagination can limit the possibilities, and we are transforming education as we speak. I believe you do a great work on that, and I'm honored and glad that you allowed me to participate with you. I have to thank you for this opportunity. And if you have any questions, or if you by any chance want to participate and collaborate with us, we are always here for you. Hope you have a blessed week and a blessed end of year. So be safe and take care. But really, I will appreciate your questions, and I'm honored and I'm thankful for this invitation.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one query. Activity-based learning is a very important tool to enhance student understanding, but it's time-consuming, and the vast amount of the syllabus we have to complete in a semester is challenge we face.
Yes.
Any inputs, ma'am?
I agree with Dr. Shalaha. It's very time consuming. This is like a 24-hour job. What we move all, for example, in my courses, we move all the syllabus to fit with project-based. So all my syllabus from modern physics, from quantum physics, from electrodynamics is project-based. The first 2 years, I have to admit, I was exhausted all the time. Sometimes I was even in a bad mood because it was exhausting, time-consuming. I was switching from one approach to the other, trying to take the authorities to get on board, my peers, my students, to convince everybody. It was exhausting. But after the second year, and in particular the Halloween experience, we rehearsed it prior to doing the live transmission. And the first 2 years, the provost and the dean talked to me that I was doing some sort of cult or something, that it was not approved, that the university was non-religious based, that I have to, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything on that side. And he was like, it seems like you have even a satanic cult in here. And I was like, at what time? And they didn't understand what I was doing till the second year. The first 2 years, I was too exhausted. And now in the Galileo University, I have a longer semester than in the public Universidad de San Carlos. It's how it works. But in Galileo University, I always end up the syllabus earlier than the end of semester. It's amazing how we have another teacher who does the same course, but I always end up the syllabus first. And although it is time consuming, you have to find the compromise between the summative evaluations and the project base. And when you let go of the summative evaluations, that's how you need to talk to the authorities, because they need to understand why you're doing this. And you move to project-based, the focus is on the students. You finally move the focus to the students. You are working a lot, they are working a lot, but then you find the compromise of not getting too consumed. Sometimes to follow on the traditional models, the teacher is always exhausted, grading, making all the effort so that the students get all the information. But when you flip it this way, it gets to be a collaborative effort. I'm telling you, it is time consuming, but as you adapt to it, you will find it more rewarding. Do we have another question?
Thank you, Valiska.
No,
That was really good. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so if no more questions, I thank you very much. And I'm honored to participate. I thank Dr. Shalaha also for the invitation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you so much. On behalf of the organizing departments, I would like to take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to Dr. Veliska. Thank you, ma'am, for an amazing session. We had an enriched learning experience. Though our time zones are different, a special thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to be part of our faculty development program today and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing with us an advanced and different ways to assess the students' knowledge and skills, to assess the progress of students in an innovative way, and the need to assist the students with the intangible ideas that they possess. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for all that you have taught us today.
Thank you. I'm really honored. I'm glad to participate.
Thank you, ma'am.